A flour-covered boy screams "Daddy" and points at Min-jun in a Seoul bakery. The billionaire freezes. The boy's mother is Amara, the woman he abandoned 6 years ago. The child has his face, his birthday, his eyes. She says the boy isn't his, but a DNA test reveals the devastating truth. He's been a father for 5 years and never knew. Now, 3 days before his wedding, he must choose between his empire and the family he destroyed. Hey family, welcome to Real Life Hot Stories. Please subscribe and give this video a like. It truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you so much for the support. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. The door to Sweet Dreams Bakery chimed as Min-jun stepped inside, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished floor. He adjusted his Rolex and approached the counter with the confidence of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. 3 days until his wedding. Everything was perfect. Everything was controlled. White fondant. 3 tiers. Minimalist design, he told the baker, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. The woman behind the counter nodded, reaching for her order book. Of course, Mr. Park. Let me just. A crash echoed from the back room. Then, like a small tornado, a boy burst through the kitchen doors. Flour covered his brown skin from head to toe. He couldn't have been more than 5 years old. His curly hair was dusted white, and his hands left powdery prints on everything he touched. "Mommy!" the boy shouted at the top of his lungs. "I found Daddy." The entire bakery went silent. Min-jun froze. The boy was pointing directly at him. "Sweetheart, no." A woman's voice cut through the stillness, urgent and panicked. Min-jun turned slowly, and his world tilted on its axis. She stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the shop floor, her dark eyes wide with shock. Her natural hair was pulled back into a bun, and she wore a simple apron over jeans and a t-shirt. She looked exactly as he remembered her, yet completely different. 6 years had passed since he'd last seen her face. "Amara." His throat went dry. "Amara." She grabbed the boy's hand quickly, pulling him close. "We need to go. Now." But the boy was already running toward Min-jun, his small feet padding against the floor. He stopped right in front of him, tilting his head back to stare up with wide, curious eyes. "Are you my daddy?" the boy asked innocently. Min-jun's heart hammered against his ribs. He looked at the child's face, really looked, and his breath caught. The boy's nose. The shape of his eyes. The way he stood with one hip jutted out slightly. It was like looking at a photograph of himself as a child. "Elijah, come here," Amara said sharply, her voice trembling. She moved forward and scooped the boy into her arms despite his protests. "But Mommy, you said." "I said nothing," she interrupted, her eyes meeting Min-jun's for just a second before looking away. "We're leaving." Min-jun finally found his voice. "Wait." "There's nothing to wait for." Amara's jaw was set, her entire body tense. "Come on, baby." "Is that boy?" Min-jun started, but she cut him off. "He's not yours." The words were a slap. Sharp. Final. But the boy wiggled in her arms and pointed at Min-jun again. "Mommy, you told me Daddy's birthday is September 7th. That's his birthday. I saw it on the news." Amara's face went pale. Min-jun's world stopped spinning and started falling apart instead. September 7th. His birthday. Information this child should not know. "How does he?" Min-jun began. "Goodbye, Min-jun." Amara turned and rushed toward the exit, the boy looking back over her shoulder with confused, innocent eyes. The door chimed again as they disappeared into the Seoul afternoon. Min-jun stood alone in the bakery, his perfectly planned life suddenly feeling like a house of cards in a hurricane. The baker cleared her throat awkwardly. "Sir? About your wedding cake." But he couldn't answer. He could only stare at the door where his past had just collided with his present, bringing with it a small boy with flour in his hair and questions Min-jun wasn't ready to face. A boy who had his face. A boy who knew his birthday. A boy who'd called him Daddy. If you're already hooked by this story, hit that subscribe button now, because this is only the beginning, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The following morning, Min-jun sat in his penthouse office, staring at the Seoul skyline without really seeing it. His assistant had brought coffee an hour ago. It sat untouched, cold. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that boy. Elijah. The name echoed in his mind like a question he couldn't answer. His phone buzzed. A text from his fiancée, G1. * dinner tonight with my parents. 7 p.m. Don't be late. *. He typed a response, deleted it, then simply sent a thumbs-up emoji. G1 was perfect on paper. Daughter of a media mogul. Educated in Switzerland. Beautiful, poised, connected. Their marriage would merge two business empires and secure his place among Seoul's elite. It was exactly what he'd worked for. So why did it suddenly feel hollow? Mr. Park. His assistant, Sung-ho, knocked on the door. Your 10 o'clock is here. Cancel it, Min-jun said without turning around. Sir, it's the merger with. Cancel everything today. Min-jun stood abruptly, grabbing his jacket. I need you to find someone for me. Sung-ho pulled out his tablet, ready. Name. Amara Williams. The name felt strange on his tongue after all these years. She was in Seoul 6 years ago. She might still be here. I need an address. Is this personal? Min-jun's jaw tightened. Just find her. 3 hours later, he had an address in Itaewon and a background report that made his chest ache. Amara Williams, age 31. Owned a small bakery in partnership with a Korean woman. Previously married to David Chun, deceased 18 months ago in a car accident. One child, Elijah Chun, age 5. 5 years old. Min-jun did the math quickly. If the boy was his, that meant Amara had been pregnant when he'd ended things. When he'd chosen his career over her. When he'd let his family's pressure convince him that marrying a foreign black woman would ruin his business prospects. His hands shook as he read the report again. Deceased husband. She'd married someone else. Built a life. Had a child. Moved on. The rational part of his brain said to let it go. The boy had a father. Had a father. Past tense. And that father wasn't him, legally or otherwise. But the boy had his face. And somehow, he knew Min-jun's birthday. That evening, instead of going to dinner with Ji-won's parents, Min-jun found himself parked outside Amara's bakery. It was closed, the lights off. He sat in his car for 20 minutes before he saw her. She walked down the street holding Elijah's hand, both of them laughing about something. The boy hopped over cracks in the sidewalk, and Amara pretended to be impressed by his jumps. They looked happy. Complete. Min-jun's finger hovered over the door handle, but he couldn't make himself move. What right did he have to disrupt their peace? Then Elijah looked up and saw him through the car window. The boy's face lit up with recognition, and he tugged on Amara's hand, pointing. Mommy, it's him. Amara followed his gaze, and her expression shifted from surprise to anger in seconds. She said something sharp to Elijah, then marched straight to Min-jun's car. He rolled down the window. Are you following us? Her voice was low, dangerous. I need to talk to you. No. Amara, please. You don't get to please me. Not after 6 years. Her eyes blazed. You made your choice. You left. You don't get to walk back into our lives because you're curious. Is he mine? The question burst out before he could stop it. Amara's expression hardened. He was David's son. Legally, emotionally, in every way that matters. Was. You said was. Because David's dead. Her voice cracked slightly. And even if Elijah was biologically yours, which I'm not confirming, you have no claim to him. You gave up that right when you chose your empire over us. Elijah appeared at her side, looking up at both of them with confused eyes. Mommy, why are you mad? Amara's face softened instantly. I'm not mad, baby. Let's go home. But, now, Elijah. She took his hand and walked away without looking back. Min-jun sat in his car, his chest tight with a feeling he couldn't name. His phone buzzed. G1 again. Where are you? My parents are waiting. He stared at the message, then looked at Amara's retreating figure. For the first time in his carefully constructed life, Min-jun had no idea what to do next. The next day, Min-jun hired a private investigator. He told himself it was just to confirm the truth. To know for certain. Then he could move on, marry Ji-won, live the life he'd planned. But deep down, he knew he was lying to himself. The investigator's name was Mr. Kong, a discreet man in his 50s who'd handled sensitive matters for Min-jun's company before. I need complete background on Amara Williams and her son, Min-jun said, sliding an envelope across the table. Everything. Where they go, who they see, and anything about the boy's birth. Mr. Kong nodded. How far back? 6 years. If Mr. Kong was surprised, he didn't show it. Give me 3 days. But Min-jun couldn't wait 3 days. That afternoon, he found himself at the park near Amara's apartment. He told himself it was coincidence. That he just needed fresh air to clear his head before the wedding preparations. Then he saw them. Elijah was on the swings, pumping his legs with fierce concentration while Amara stood nearby, watching with a mixture of pride and worry. Higher, mommy. Watch me go higher. Not too high, baby. You'll. The chain slipped slightly, and Elijah wobbled. Amara rushed forward, but before she could reach him, Min-jun was already there, steadying the swing. Whoa there, champion, he said automatically. You okay? Elijah beamed up at him. I'm brave. Mommy says I'm the bravest. Elijah, come here. Amara's voice was tight, but the boy didn't move. Instead, he looked at Min-jun with those achingly familiar eyes and said, Do you know how to do the monkey bars? Mommy can't because of her bad knee. Min-jun glanced at Amara. Her expression was unreadable. I used to be pretty good at monkey bars, he admitted. Show me. Before Amara could protest, Elijah grabbed Min-jun's hand and pulled him toward the jungle gym. The touch, small fingers wrapped around his, sent a jolt through Min-jun's entire body. This could be his son. This laughing, fearless, beautiful child could be his. Elijah, Amara called, but her voice lacked conviction. At the monkey bars, Elijah watched with wide eyes as Min-jun demonstrated, his expensive suit jacket discarded on a bench. When he finished, the boy clapped enthusiastically. My turn. Catch me if I fall. I've got you, Min-jun said, and meant it. For 20 minutes they played. Elijah chattered non-stop about his favorite foods, his best friend at school, how he wanted to be an astronaut, and how he missed his dad but mommy said dad was watching from heaven. Each word was a knife to Min-jun's heart. Finally, Amara approached. It's time to go home, Elijah. But mommy. Now. The boy's shoulders slumped, but he hugged Min-jun's leg quickly before running to his mother. Amara and Min-jun stood facing each other, the playground sounds fading into background noise. Why are you really here? She asked quietly. I don't know, he admitted. I saw him, and I can't stop thinking about what you might have lost. Her laugh was bitter. Join the club. Amara, if there's any chance he's mine. He's not. But her voice wavered. I could get a DNA test. It's simple. Non-invasive. Her eyes flashed. You want to play dad now? After 6 years? After you told me that marrying me would complicate your business prospects? After you chose your family's approval over us? The words hit like physical blows. I was wrong, Min-jun said, the admission tearing out of him. I was young and stupid and scared, and I chose wrong. I know that now. Knowing it now doesn't change the past. Tears gathered in her eyes. David was there. David held my hand through labor. David got up for midnight feedings. David taught Elijah to ride a bike. David was his father in every way that mattered. I know, and I'm not trying to replace. Then what are you trying to do? Her voice broke. Because from where I'm standing, you're about to marry someone else in 3 days, and you're here disrupting my son's life because you saw a ghost of what might have been. Min-jun had no answer. Amara wiped her eyes roughly. Stay away from us, Min-jun. Please. We've been through enough. She took Elijah's hand and walked away. The boy looked back once, waving. Min-jun raised his hand in return, feeling something inside him crack. Comment below, what would you do in Min-jun's position? Would you walk away or fight for the truth? Let me know your thoughts. That night, Min Jun sat in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand, and let himself remember. 6 years ago, Amara had been a graduate student studying international business. They'd met at a coffee shop near Seoul National University. She'd been struggling with her Korean homework, and he'd offered to help. One conversation became coffee, became dinner, became months of the happiest time in his life. She was brilliant, funny, unimpressed by his money or status. She challenged him, made him laugh, made him want to be better. He'd fallen completely, recklessly in love. Then his mother found out. "You're throwing away everything for a foreigner," she'd said, her voice cold. "Your father built this company for you. Your grandfather before him. And you want to risk it all for a woman who doesn't understand our culture, our business, our world. She's not just a woman. I love her." Love. His mother's laugh was sharp. "You think love pays for this penthouse? Love won't impress investors. Love won't merge companies or secure deals. You marry within our circle, Min Jun. You marry someone who strengthens what we've built. That's your duty." He'd tried to fight it. Had planned to propose to Amara anyway. Then his father had a heart attack. Stress, the doctors said. The company was in crisis. A major deal was falling through. His father needed Min Jun to step up, to be the leader they'd groomed him to be. "Fix this," his mother had said at the hospital. "And fix that situation with that girl. Your father can't handle any more stress." So he'd gone to Amara's apartment and broken both their hearts. "We can't do this anymore," he'd said, unable to meet her eyes. "What? Why?" "My family. The company. It's too complicated." "Complicated? Min Jun, we love each other. We can figure it out." "No." The word was harsh. Final. "We can't. You don't understand the pressure, the expectations. I have responsibilities." "To everyone but yourself?" Tears streamed down her face. "I thought we were building something real." "So did I. But we were wrong." He'd walked out that night and thrown himself into work. Built his empire. Made his family proud. Became exactly what they'd wanted. And never, not for one single day, stopped regretting it. He'd assumed Amara had gone back to America. That she'd moved on, found happiness. He never knew about Elijah. Never knew she'd stayed in Seoul. Never knew she'd been pregnant with possibly his child when he'd walked away. The guilt was crushing. His phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Kong. "Preliminary findings ready. Meet tomorrow." Min Jun's thumb hovered over the screen. Once he knew the truth, there was no going back. No pretending. No convenient ignorance. If Elijah was his son, everything would change. His engagement. His family's expectations. His carefully controlled life. But if Elijah was his son, and he walked away again, he'd never forgive himself. Min Jun typed back, *tomorrow. 8 a.m. Then he picked up his phone and called Ji-won. "Min Jun? It's late." "We need to talk," he said. "I need to tell you something." There was a pause. "This doesn't sound good." "It's not. But you deserve honesty." He could hear her breathing on the other end, steady and controlled. Ji-won was many things, but she wasn't naive. "Does this have to do with where you were yesterday?" she asked. "Your assistant said you cancelled everything." "Yes." Another pause. "Is it another woman?" "It's complicated." "That's not a no." Her voice was calm, too calm. "We're getting married in 3 days, Min Jun. Whatever this is, you need to figure it out. Now." "I know. I'm trying." "Try harder. Because I won't be humiliated at the altar." She hung up. Min Jun set down the phone and buried his face in his hands. He'd spent 6 years building a life he thought he wanted. Now a 5-year-old boy with flour in his hair was making him question everything. The next morning, Mr. Kong spread photographs and documents across the conference table. "Amara Williams arrived in Seoul 7 years ago on a student visa," he began. "She met you approximately 6 months later. Your relationship lasted roughly 8 months before ending. Min Jun's jaw tightened. I know all this. Tell me about the boy. Elijah Chen was born 5 years and 3 months ago at Seoul National University Hospital. Birth certificate lists the father as David Chen, a Korean-American English teacher. Amora married 7 months before Elijah's birth. 7 months. Min Jun's stomach dropped. She was already pregnant when they married. Appears so. David Chen adopted Elijah legally upon marriage. By all accounts, he was a devoted father. Mr. Kong slid another photo across. David Chen was younger than Min Jun expected. Kind eyes. Gentle smile. They were happy. Min Jun asked. By all accounts, yes. Neighbors describe them as loving. David was involved in Elijah's school, took him to the park, attended every event. Mr. Kong paused. He died in a car accident 18 months ago. Drunk driver. Amara was in the car too. Broken leg, some internal injuries. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Min Jun closed his eyes. God. She runs the bakery now with her business partner. Struggles financially but manages. Elijah attends a good school. She's a devoted mother. Does she see anyone? Dating? Not that I can tell. She's focused on Elijah and the business. Mr. Kong pulled out another document. However, I did find something interesting. He handed Min Jun a medical record. Prenatal visit. 8 weeks pregnant. Date stamped 2 months after Min Jun had ended things. She knew, Min Jun whispered. She knew she was pregnant. And she didn't tell you. The betrayal stung, even though he understood it. She tried to call him dozens of times after their breakup. He'd blocked her number. Sent her messages back unopened. He'd made it impossible for her to reach him. What do you want me to do next? Mr. Kong asked. Min Jun stared at the photograph of Elijah. Curly hair, bright smile, so full of life. Can you get a DNA sample? Without them knowing? Mr. Kong raised an eyebrow. It's possible. But, do it. Min Jun's voice was steel. I need to know for certain. 2 days later, Mr. Kong returned with results. Min Jun's hands shook as he opened the envelope. DNA match, 99.9%. The paper slipped from his fingers. Elijah was his son. His son. A child he'd missed 5 years of. First steps. First words. First everything. Because he'd chosen duty over love. Because he'd let fear control him. Because he'd been a coward. The wedding was tomorrow. His entire family was flying in from across Korea and abroad. The venue was booked. The guest list was 500 people. The merger his marriage would facilitate was worth billions. And none of it mattered. Because somewhere in Seoul, his son was laughing and playing and growing up without him. Min Jun picked up his phone and made the hardest call of his life. Mother, I need to tell you something. If you're still with me, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because the most emotional part of this story is coming next. The bakery was closed when Min Jun arrived, but he could see light in the back. He knocked, waited, knocked again. Amara appeared at the door, surprise and frustration crossing her face. It's 9 p.m., Min Jun. We're closed. I know he's mine. She went completely still. I had a DNA test done. I know Elijah is my biological son. Her face flushed with anger. You did what? How did you? Understanding dawned. You took something of his. Without permission. Without asking me. I needed to know. You had no right. Her voice shook. No right to invade our privacy, to go behind my back. I had every right. Min Jun's control snapped. He's my son. My son, Amara. And you never told me. You blocked me. She screamed back. You blocked my number, returned my messages, made it impossible to reach you. I tried, Min Jun. I tried to tell you I was pregnant, and you shut me out completely. The words hung between them, 6 years of pain and regret crystallizing in the night air. I didn't know you were trying, he said quietly. I thought you'd moved on. I was terrified and alone and pregnant in a foreign country, and the man I loved had thrown me away like garbage. Tears streamed down her face. David found me crying in the bathroom at school. He took me to dinner, let me talk, became my friend. When I told him I was pregnant, he offered to marry me. To give my baby a name, a father, stability. Did you love him? She wiped her eyes. Not at first. But he was kind and patient, and he loved Elijah from the first moment he was born. And yes, eventually, I learned to love him too. Not the way I loved you, but real. He was a good man, Minjun. The best father Elijah could have asked for. I should have been that father. But you weren't. Her voice cracked. You chose your empire. Your family's approval. Your perfect life. Those were your choices. And now I'm choosing differently. It's too late. It's not. I cancelled the wedding. Amora's eyes widened. What? I called it off this morning. Told my fiancé, told my family, told everyone. Minjun stepped closer. I'm not asking to replace David. I could never. But Elijah is my son, and I want to be part of his life. I want to know him. I want him to know me. You cancelled your wedding. She said it like she couldn't believe it. Everything I built these past 6 years? It's empty without him. Without the chance to be his father. I was wrong, Amara. About everything. She was silent for a long moment. David made me promise something before he died. Minjun waited. He knew. About you. I told him everything when we got serious. And when he was in the hospital after the accident, he made me promise never to go looking for you. He said Elijah was his son, and that should be enough. Her voice broke. He was afraid you'd take him away from me. I would never. But now you're here anyway. And David isn't. And I don't know what to do. She sank down onto the bakery steps, her head in her hands. Minjun sat beside her carefully. What do you want, Amara? I want David back. I want Elijah to have the father who actually showed up. She looked at him with red eyes. But since I can't have that, I want what's best for my son. And I don't know if that's you. Let me try. Please. Let me try to be what he needs. And when it gets hard, when your family pressures you again, when keeping us in your life becomes inconvenient, I'm not that person anymore. Prove it. They sat in silence, the soul night humming around them. Finally, Amara spoke. Elijah doesn't know. About you. About any of this. What does he think? That you're a nice man who helped him at the park. That you knew his birthday because you're famous and it's public information. She laughed bitterly. He's 5. He believes what I tell him. What are you going to tell him? I don't know yet. She stood, brushing off her jeans. But you don't get to just walk into his life and announce you're his father. You have to earn that. You have to show up. Consistently. Not when it's convenient or when you feel guilty, but every day. The hard days. The boring days. The days when he's sick or cranky or driving you crazy. I want to. I want all of it. We'll see. She opened the door to go inside, then paused. Your family must be furious. They'll get over it. Or they won't. Either way, it doesn't change what I know I have to do. What about your fiancé? She deserved better than half my heart. Amara studied him for a long moment. You really cancelled everything. Everything. She shook her head slowly. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish. Maybe both. A tiny smile flickered across her face. Maybe. Then she went inside and closed the door, leaving Minjun alone on the step. But this time, it felt different. This time, it felt like a beginning. 3 weeks later, Minjun stood outside Elijah's school, nervous in a way no board meeting or business deal had ever made him. It had been Amora's idea. Pick him up from school on Friday. Just you two. Take him to the park or for ice cream. Let him get to know you. What do I tell him? The truth. Age-appropriate truth. That you knew his mommy a long time ago. That you'd like to be his friend. Now the school bell rang, and children poured out like confetti. Then he saw Elijah, backpack bouncing, running toward the gate. The boy saw him and stopped, tilting his head. Mr. Park. Hey, Elijah. Your mom asked me to pick you up today. Is that okay? Elijah's face lit up. Really? Are we going somewhere fun? That depends. Do you like ice cream? I love ice cream. Then yes, we're going somewhere fun. In the car, Elijah chattered non-stop about his day. About his teacher and his best friend Marco, and how he'd gotten a gold star for his drawing. At the ice cream shop, they sat outside with matching chocolate cones. Mr. Park. Elijah asked, chocolate on his nose. You can call me Min-June if you want. Min-June. That's a cool name. Did you know my daddy? The question hit Min-June in the chest. No, I didn't. But your mom told me he was a great man. The best. Elijah kicked his legs happily. He taught me to ride a bike without training wheels. And he made the best pancakes. Mommy tries, but they're always burned. Min-June laughed despite himself. Your mom burns pancakes? So bad. Elijah giggled. But I eat them anyway because it makes her happy. That's very kind of you. Daddy said being kind is the most important thing. Elijah looked at him seriously. Are you kind, Min-June? I try to be. I haven't always been good at it, but I'm trying to be better. That's good. Daddy also said trying is half of winning. Every mention of David was a reminder of what Min-June had missed. But instead of jealousy, he felt gratitude. David had given Elijah what he couldn't. Love. Presence. Wisdom. Your daddy sounds like he was very smart, Min-June said softly. He was the smartest. Except at video games. I was better at video games. Elijah paused. Do you play video games? I used to when I was younger. I'm probably pretty rusty now. I could teach you. I'm really good at Mario Kart. I'd like that. They finished their ice cream and walked to the park. Elijah ran ahead to the swings, and Min-June followed, feeling lighter than he had in years. For 2 hours they played. Min-June pushed Elijah on the swings, helped him across the monkey bars, and even joined him in the sandbox despite his expensive suit. When Amara arrived to pick up Elijah, she found them building an elaborate sand castle, both covered in dirt and laughing. Mommy, look what we made. It has a moat and everything. Amara's expression was soft. It's beautiful, baby. Elijah ran to her, hugging her legs. Can Min-June come over for dinner sometime? Min-June and Amara locked eyes. Maybe, she said carefully. If he wants to. I would love that, Min-June said. Later, after Elijah was in the car, Amara approached him. He had fun, she said. So did I. More than I expected. You're good with him. He makes it easy. Amara was quiet for a moment. Next Friday. Dinner at our place. Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti and whatever stories Elijah decides to tell. I'll be there. Min-June. She stopped him as he turned to leave. Thank you for showing up today. Not many people follow through. I'm going to keep showing up, Amara. Every Friday. Every time you'll let me. We'll see. But this time, she said it with a hint of a smile. And as Min-June drove home through Seoul traffic, he felt something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Hope. Real, terrifying, beautiful hope. Like this video if you believe second chances are real. And subscribe because this journey is far from over. Over the next few months, Min-June became a fixture in Elijah's life. Every Friday pickup. Weekend trips to museums and parks. Video game sessions where a 5-year-old thoroughly destroyed a billionaire at Mario Kart. But the question still hung unasked. When would Elijah learn the truth? On a rainy Saturday afternoon, Min-June sat in Amara's small living room while Elijah napped in his room. Amara made tea, and they sat in comfortable silence that would have been unthinkable months ago. He asked me something yesterday, Amara said quietly. What? If you could be his new daddy. She met his eyes. Since his first daddy is in heaven. Minjun's heart stopped. What did you tell him? I asked him why he wanted that. He said, because you show up every week. Because you listen when he talks. Because you make him feel special. She set down her teacup with shaking hands. He said you remind him of his daddy. Amara, I think it's time we tell him the truth. Age-appropriate, gentle truth. But the truth. Are you sure? No. But David would want what's best for Elijah. And denying him a father who actually wants to be present? That's not what's best. She looked at him seriously. But you need to understand something. David will always be his daddy. The first. The one who was there. You get to be his father too, if you earn it. But you don't replace David. Ever. I don't want to replace him. I want to honor what he gave Elijah. What he gave you. Okay then. She took a deep breath. Let's tell him together. When Elijah woke from his nap, they called him into the living room. Am I in trouble? He asked, looking between them with worried eyes. No, sweetheart, Amara said, pulling him onto her lap. We need to tell you something important. About Minjun. About why he's been spending so much time with us. Elijah looked at Minjun curiously. Minjun's mouth went dry. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals, but this was the hardest conversation of his life. Elijah, you know how your daddy is in heaven now? Amara started gently. Yeah. Daddy Chun. I miss him. I know you do, baby. And he loved you so much. He was your daddy in every way, and nothing will ever change that. Okay. Elijah was confused now. Amara looked at Minjun, encouraging him to speak. Elijah, before your mommy married your daddy Chun, she and I knew each other, Minjun said carefully. We were very good friends. And before you were born, before your mommy even knew she was going to have a baby, we weren't friends anymore. Why not? Because I made a mistake. I chose work over people I cared about. I wasn't ready to be the person your mommy and daddy needed. Elijah frowned, processing. But you're friends now? We're trying to be, Amara said. And Minjun. Well, Minjun is your biological father. That means when you were made, before you were born, Minjun was part of that. But your daddy Chun was your real daddy. He raised you and loved you and taught you everything important. So I have two daddies. Elijah's eyes were wide. Like my friend Emma has two mommies? Kind of like that, yeah, Amara said, relief flooding her face. Daddy Chun was your daddy. And Minjun is your father. If you want him to be. Elijah looked at Minjun seriously. Do you want to be my father? More than anything in the world, Minjun said honestly. But only if you want me to be. Will you still come play with me on Fridays? Every Friday. And Saturdays and Sundays too, if you want. And you won't go away again? The question was so innocent, so hopeful, so heartbreaking. Never, Minjun promised. I'm here now, and I'm staying. Elijah thought about this for a long moment. Then he climbed off Amara's lap and walked over to Minjun. Okay. You can be my father. But I'm still going to call my heaven daddy Daddy, because that was his special name. That's perfect, Minjun said, tears threatening. What do you want to call me? Can I call you Appa? That's what my friend Jun calls his dad in Korean. Minjun's breath caught. I would love that. Okay, Appa. Elijah hugged him suddenly, small arms wrapping around Minjun's neck. Don't be sad. Mommy says Daddy sent you to help take care of us now that he can't. Minjun looked at Amara over Elijah's head. She was crying too. Your mommy is very smart, he managed to say. That night, after Elijah was asleep, Minjun and Amara stood on her small balcony overlooking the Seoul streets. Thank you, he said, for giving me this chance. For telling him. He deserves to know his father. Both of them. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. I know. She smiled slightly. You proved that when you cancelled your wedding and endured months of my skepticism without running away. How is your family handling all this? Your mother must be livid. Furious. But they'll come around. Or they won't. Either way, I've made my choice. They stood in comfortable silence. What happens now? Amara asked finally. Now I keep showing up. Keep being the father Elijah deserves. Keep proving to you that I've changed. And if I said I might be willing to let you prove more than that? He looked at her sharply. What do you mean? I mean we were good together once. Before everything fell apart. And I'm not saying we go back to that or that I'm ready for anything. But maybe we could see who we are now. As people. As parents. As whatever we might become. Min Jun's heart raced. I would like that. Very much. But only at your pace. Only when you're ready. Deal. She held out her hand, and he took it, her fingers warm in his. Below them, Seoul hummed with life. Cars passed. People laughed and argued and lived their lives. And in a small apartment in Itaewon, a billionaire who'd lost everything that mattered stood beside the woman he'd never stopped loving and their son who'd brought them back together. It wasn't the ending he'd planned. It was infinitely better. 6 months later, Min Jun stood in that same bakery where his life had changed, watching Amara and Elijah decorate cupcakes with alarming amounts of sprinkles. His mother had finally agreed to meet Elijah last week. It had been awkward and tense, but Elijah's charm had worked its magic. By the end of the visit, she was smiling despite herself. His company was thriving under new management structures he'd implemented. Turned out, he didn't need a strategic marriage to be successful. Ji-won had married a tech mogul and seemed genuinely happy. And Min Jun? He showed up every day. Helped with homework. Attended school events. Made terrible pancakes that Elijah ate anyway because it made him happy. He was learning who he was when he wasn't trying to be who everyone expected. Appa. Elijah called. Come help. Mommy's letting me make a rainbow cupcake. Min Jun walked over, and Amara smiled at him. A real smile, full of warmth and possibility. You've got frosting on your nose, she said. Occupational hazard of cupcake decorating. She reached up and wiped it off, her touch lingering just slightly longer than necessary. They were taking it slow. Dating, sort of. Learning each other again. Building something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. It wasn't perfect. There were hard days. Moments when the past hurt too much. Nights when Min Jun still woke up guilty about the years he'd missed. But every Friday, he picked up Elijah from school. Every Saturday, they played in the park. Every Sunday, they had family dinner together. He'd gone to buy a wedding cake and found his family. The one he was always meant to have. Appa, you're supposed to be helping. Elijah protested, pulling him back to the present. Sorry. What do you need? More sprinkles. And also, can we go to the park after? Min Jun looked at Amara. She nodded. Absolutely. We can go to the park. And can you push me on the swings really high? As high as you want. And catch me if I fall? Min Jun knelt down and looked his son in the eyes. Always. I'll always catch you. Elijah grinned and threw his sprinkle-covered arms around Min Jun's neck. And in that moment, covered in frosting and surrounded by the laughter of his family, Min Jun understood what he'd been too blind to see 6 years ago. This was success. This was everything. This was home. Thank you for watching this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. Leave a comment telling me what moment hit you the hardest. And share this with someone who believes in second chances and the power of showing up. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to choose love over everything else.